Kenny Dietz.
Left.
So we'll get started. Just get started. So first off, welcome everyone to our public board meeting of September 14th, 2020. As I just mentioned in our in-camera portion, welcome. It is so wonderful to see everyone's faces. We have some trustees still joining us on the phone. And we have some new faces around the boardroom. And so we would like to welcome student trustee Ethan Hessler, as well as student trustee Fatima Zagar. And we also have student trustee Skylar Ziggy. She does have regrets with us today, but we look forward to welcoming student trustee Ziggy with us as well. Just before we get started, the way this meeting will work is I will start with trustees who are on the phone, and I will go through the list in, normal order and then reverse order, and I will then go to trustees in the room, and I'll ask for a show of hands for anyone who has questions in order to be more efficient around time. For our trustees who are on the phone, I'll ask you to make sure that you are muted.
Carol Pakin-Miller.
Joined.
So for our trustees on the phone, I'll remind you to ensure that you are muted and in places that are private. And with that as well, we'll continue to do dissent motions, as we do have some of our trustees participating on the line. And with that, I'll ask for everyone voting against, or if there's anyone who is dissenting, to please let me know. Otherwise, I'll assume that you're voting in favor. So with that, I will begin with our call to order and our land acknowledgement. The Hamilton Wentworth District School Board acknowledges our presence on the ancestral Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee Confederacy land as determined by the Dish with One Spoon Treaty. The Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt represents the relationship between the Haudenosaunee Confederacy and Anishinaabe with respect to sharing the land and resources thereon. The intent of this agreement is for all nations sharing this territory to do so responsibly, respectfully, and sustainably in perpetuity. We respect the long-standing relationships with the local Indigenous communities, the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, and the Six Nations of the Grand River. And with that, I'll ask you to stand for the singing of O Canada. So just before we go into approval of the agenda, I will just state the trustees that we have in the room. So we do have our two student trustees, student trustee Hessler, student trustee Zakar, trustee Galindo. Trustee Miller has momentarily stepped out of the room. We have trustee Buck, trustee Mulholland, vice chair Danko, and of course myself. And we do have all of our executive council in the room today. On the line, if I can just confirm attendance, do we have trustee Archer?
Present, and I'm watching online. Hello, everybody.
Hello. Trustee Bingham.
I'm present.
Do we have trustee Deeth? Trustee Deeth? Do we have trustee Deeth? Moving along, do we have trustee Peckham Miller?
Yes, I'm here.
And do we have trustee Tutt?
Present, thank you.
Thank you. So with that, I'll look for approval of the agenda. We'll have that moved by trustee Galindo, seconded by trustee Danko. Do we have anyone voting against? Hearing none, the agenda passes. Do we have any declarations of conflicts of interest? Hearing none, we'll move to item 6, confirmation of the minutes from July 22nd. So I'll give folks a moment to look over, June 22nd. So I'll give folks a moment to look over those meeting minutes. And I'll just ask, is there any questions or changes that need to be made? Hearing none, well, I'll ask actually for all. Do we have any for July 13th, 27th, August 10th, 24th, or 31st? And I'll just give folks a few moments to look over. Is there any comments? Hearing none, we'll continue along. Reports from Committee of the Whole Advisory Committees. Item 7, Rural Schools Advisory Committee, last met June 24th. And I will turn to trustee Tutt to bring forward the report. Oh, my apologies. I skipped right over the swearing in of the students. I was so excited to be in person that I just started moving along. So with that, I'll ask our two students to stand at their location. Nope, to sit. And if you could, don't they normally stand though? But they can stand in their location. Yeah, they can stand where they are though. Okay, all right. So to remain seated, I guess, and to, if you want to read, we'll start with trustee Ethan Hessler, please.
Thank you. So, I, Ethan Hessler, have been elected by my peers to represent the elementary and secondary students of Hamilton Wentworth District School Board. Do solemnly declare that I will truly, impartially, and to the best of my ability, execute the office of student trustee. I will respect the rules, policies, and conduct of this board, including maintaining the confidentiality of the board with regards to matters that are dealt in closed session. I will represent the students to the best of my ability and will present the best interest of students for the benefit of the board. And I will serve as an advocate and representative of the Hamilton Wentworth District School Board at all times.
Thank you. I, Fatima Zakar, having been elected by my peers to represent the elementary and secondary students of Hamilton Wentworth District School Board, do solemnly declare that I will truly, impartially, and to the best of my ability execute the office of student trustee. I will respect the rules, policies, and conduct of this board, including maintaining the confidentiality of the board with regards to matters that are dealt with in closed session. I will represent students to the best of my ability and will present the best interests of students for the benefit of the board. And I will serve as an advocate and representative of the Hamilton Wentworth District School Board at all times.
Thank you. So with that, thank you very much and welcome to the Board of Trustees. And we very much look forward to hearing your contributions, your voice. Certainly, you've already had a very quick and fast introduction through the month of August. And as I was stating to both of you before the meeting began, you both hit the ground running. You have both raised excellent questions through the month of August, and if that's what you're starting with, we look forward to seeing you grow and further into your roles as student trustees throughout the year, and we look forward to all of your contributions. So welcome. So with that, we are now moving along to Rural Schools Report from June 24th. Trustee Tutt, would you be able to bring forward the report over the phone?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. If trustees look in their package, they'll see the report there at 7-1, and it follows the meeting of date on June 24th, 2020. There was one action item, and there was a number of informational items that was discussed. Trustees will see there at action item A, exciting news that Ms. Amanda Furman was re-elected as chair of the Rural Schools Committee, so that's exciting. Looking forward to working with Chair Furman going forward. With regards to item B, trustees will see there are a number of updates given under facilities, number of construction items, and certain accommodation updates. So with regards to facilities and construction items, there's a general overview given with regards to where the process was, and as a result of COVID-19, how kind of the emergency order had delayed things, and how now on some of the projects we're kind of back on, how with some of the projects we're now working through and trying to get them back on track. So trustees will see under facilities updates various schools that are listed there. And I'll go through each of the ones with where there are updates. Actually, I'll just start in alphabetical order. The Balaclava, there's no updates, obviously, as trustees can see. With regards to Belmore, you'll see the addition of a child care addition. The board received approval from the ministry with regards to that, and the construction project is out for tender with a closing end date expected at the end of June 2020, and pending no delays. That was the update given at that time. Janet Lee, there's no updates. Michelle Jean, there was no updates. Mill Grove, an update was given with regards to the Learning Common, which is now complete, and the gym renovations are complete. Facilities will be working on a new canopy at the front of the school. The project was scheduled to be completed last summer of 2019, but with regards to unforeseen soil issues, it was put on hold. The project completion is now for this year of the summer. There was also some issues with regard to the underground storage tank, which was removed. And apparently this project is on hold until mid-July, pending a board decision on staff access to schools, but will start before the end of August 2020. Mount Hope, there was no updates. Rockton, the new Rockton School is open for September 2020. Construction was on track. Interior finishes were well underway. Ceramic tiles are all completed. Ceilings are being placed. Whiteboards were being installed. And the school's opening is on schedule for this month. Spencer Valley, the new Greensville School, is progressing well. Many of the structural components are completed. Windows are being installed, and the roof has commenced. There's also a rough-in or an ongoing project. The City of Hamilton will be building within the library and the community center component, which is exciting news. And so the expected opening is January 2021. Members did inquire as to whether the City of Hamilton's construction component would be completed at the same time or by the time that the school was opening. The Hamilton Wentworth School Board is in the preliminary stages of planning with the city regarding their schedule, but preference would be that the city's portion of the project also be completed, and so we'll keep an eye on that. The city might do interior work on the project, but every effort will be made to minimize disruption to the school. There's an update with regards to Spring Valley. The new Spring Valley School is well underway. Plumbing and electrical work is underway. Windows have been installed. Walls are all installed. Roofing work is also well underway, and the expected opening still appears to be on track for January 2021. With regards to Tapley Town, there's no updates there. Another item that was discussed was rural schools funding, and a general update was given that funds were allocated for the rural schools based on per pupil enrollment for the 2019-2020 school year. And administrators were also further informed that any unspent funds would be carried over for this year. And if they weren't spent by August 31st, the school's inability to spend from mid-March to the end of June was due to the onset of COVID and the ministerial order, so that caused a bit of a delay. Also, an update was given with regards to total available remaining budgets per school, and that was communicated to school administrators on May 25th of 2020. As well, the Rural Schools Advisory Committee was also presented with information and a reminder of what the funds could be used for. So we kind of went back and kind of updated everyone that the funds are typically allocated or used for transportation, outdoor play equipment, and things for improvement of the arts. So with regards to transportation, it's supporting school excursions and extracurricular programs outside of rural areas. Programs can also be brought into the school. With regards to outdoor play, obviously that deals with equipment, line drawing, painting activities on playgrounds, natural playgrounds, shade trees, etc. Under improvement of arts, improving the arts program by purchasing things like musical instruments, music supplies, arts related to material for program operation. It's kind of a wide array of areas there that the funds can be used for. With regards to specific schools and where the funding has been used and implemented, or could be implemented, school administration presented ideas of what has been implemented so far. So that has, for example, Belmore was able to create an outside grassed fenced area for kindergarten students to access an outdoor classroom. Spencer Valley purchased an outdoor equipment for young students. Calava implemented a 4 square games play area on the blacktop where it's faded and it's been being repainted. They're also planning to create new games such as Maze, a Map to Canada, and a Choice Circle for students to visit during outdoor problems. At Mount Hope, Book Jungle Sports came into the school. This is a program that gives students high hopes experience within the school setting. So again, kind of a flexible and a wide approach with how those funds can be used within a school setting. Other kind of informational updates that was given came under the other business heading. Obviously, there was an update given with regards to the September return to school. An update was given with regards to kind of the planning that the board has been giving for the reopening. An update was also, at that time, the board was waiting for direction from the ministry and hopeful that the guidelines would have been provided in a timely manner, which we were. And that update was given that we were all looking at all aspects of planning and for a safe return for students and staff, and that there was various subcommittees that were working to create protocols that would outline procedures and incorporate health and safety requirements during COVID-19. And then there was an update, excuse me, given with regards to further communicating that with parents for the reopening plans. As well, there was an update given with regards to the bullying panel. Chair Furman has been involved with the bullying panel review from the Parent Involvement Committee perspective and has engaged in the roundtable discussion, which is key. And I also think it's key that the Rural Schools Advisory Committee was asked to provide feedback to the bullying panel, and that there'll be a discussion at the fall meeting, and that the committee will be asked to provide feedback specifically on 4 areas: bullying intervention, bullying prevention, bullying reporting, and responding to bullying, which all is key because we want to see if bullying looks somewhat different with regards to the rural communities, or some of the same kind of pieces or stressors involved with regards to an urban setting in comparison to a rural setting. So that'll be interesting to see what that feedback looks like. Another update was with regards to communication from the board. Parents across the board have been providing feedback. That communication coming from the board is going to multiple devices, and as a result of that, parents were feeling overwhelmed. In response, the board published the school messenger app communication update, where families can manage their communication options and communication preferences. And that information with regards to the app was also available on the Hamilton Wentworth District School Board public website. As well, I kind of an update was given with regards to I was at the last meeting on June 10th, and I thank the committee with regards to their involvement and understanding the impact that the current pandemic was having generally across the board in the school system with regards to parents and their children, but also with regards to families out in the rural parts of our school community. And I kind of just gave a general update on timelines, gave a bit of an update with regards to the bullying panel and seeking guidance from folks and asking them to participate, and that we were kind of looking forward to the final report and hopefully acting upon the recommendations. And then I gave a general update with regards to the equity action plan as well. And then the final piece that was discussed was regard to future meetings, and with a meeting being set for the fall, some topics of interest that kind of came out was a presentation from the corporate communications with regards to our practices and standardizing digital platforms, which obviously kind of feeds into the piece that I mentioned up above with regards to parents feeling overwhelmed with the number of communication coming from various platforms. And there was some consideration for the fall given with regards to a blended learning approach and, concerns with some rural internet. obviously a reoccurring theme, and I know some of the other trustees like Chair Johnstone and Trustee Deeth can attest this too, that some families point out accessibility concerns and costs involved with regard to connectivity and whatnot. So those were kind of some of the pieces that were discussed at the committee, and that is the report, and I move the report, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Trustee Tutt, and I'll have this seconded by Trustee Deeth. With that, I'll begin by asking if there is questions by those trustees that are participating by phone this evening. So I'll begin with Trustee Archer. Do you have any questions?
No questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Bingham.
No questions at this time, but that was a very thorough report. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Deeth.
No questions at this time. I do appreciate Trustee Tutt bringing up the connectivity part, though. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Paikin-Miller.
No questions at this time. Thanks.
Thank you. To the trustees in the room, do we have any questions? Raise your hands high. Trustee Buck.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. It has been several months since this committee had met, and I wondered if we could have just a very brief, if possible, update about the several schools mentioned in the report that had different construction accommodation updates. So I'm thinking like Belmore, Millgrove, Rockton, Spencer Valley, Spring Valley, if possible. I understand if it's
not. So thank you through the chair. I know a fulsome report will come to Finance and Facilities when we update the capital plan. But I'm looking at Associate Director Stacy Zucker if there's anything high level you want to provide today, but typically that would come to Finance and Facilities, the detailed piece. So to the Associate Director, if there's anything high level you can provide, thank you.
Thank you, and through the chair, there is an update that will be coming to Finance and Facilities, and I'm wondering through the director if there's something specifically that he was requesting. Sorry.
So thank you. Just through the chair. So if Trustee Becky Buck has a particular one on that list that she is curious about, we can provide the best information we have now rather than go through them all. So through the chair.
That's a fair question. Yeah, I'll be patient and wait for Finance and Facilities.
Okay, and a full report will come at that time. Thank you.
Thank you. And I had no questions, just a comment that lots of great work has been going on in our rural school communities, hence the lengthy report brought forward by Trustee Tutt. So thank you. Moving, I guess, right before we move along, so on the motion to receive the report, moved by Trustee Tutt, seconded by Trustee Deeth. Is there anyone voting against? Hearing and seeing none, the report passes. Moving along to item 8, Faith Community Advisory Committee from June 29th. Turning to Trustee Buck, please, to bring forward the report.
Yes, Madam Chair. So it was the one and only time that the Faith Community Advisory Committee was able to meet this past school year. Several things were brought up, including the Holy Days calendar, which is, of course, quite important work as we look to make sure that we're creating a calendar that reflects the needs of all of our students. Members were asked to review and provide feedback. We also had Human Rights and Equity Officer Johanna Ortide update the group on the process underway with HR for staff religious accommodation. A form and procedure are being developed. Other than that, I brought a brief report, and we also discussed the Safe Schools interim bullying review, which is, we still have those 2 sessions left, which was of interest to the group. And with that, I would move the report.
Thank you. So on the motion to receive the report by Trustee Buck, and I'll have this seconded by Trustee Bingham, I'll start with reverse roll call for those on the phone. Trustee Tutt, do you have any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Paikin-Miller. I believe you're on mute, Trustee Paikin-Miller.
Sorry about that. Yeah, no, I don't have any questions, but I have to say that I couldn't hear a word she said because it's not coming through clearly on my phone for some reason. Okay. Just reporting that in case there's anything we can do about it.
Thank you for that. We, of course, are all in masks in the room, but we will certainly take that feedback and speak louder into the mic. So thank you. And then Trustee Deeth, do you have any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Trustee Bingham.
No questions, thank you.
Trustee Archer.
No questions, thanks.
To the trustees in the room, any questions? Seeing no hands. So to the motion to receive the report, moved by Trustee Buck, seconded by Trustee Bingham. Do we have anyone voting against? Hearing and seeing none, the report passes. Moving along now to item number 9, school reopening update. This is a verbal report coming forward from the director. Director Figueredo.
So thank you through the chair. This is a verbal update. The full report will be coming, the number 5 report, I should say. There was 2 in July and 2 in August. On September 28th, we'll provide our monthly update. But in conversation with the chair, we thought it was important at least to provide a verbal update as so much is happening in such a short period of time, especially around our staggered entry. Again, reminding our trustees that the July 30th is when we received our ministry guide for reopening schools, and that was predicated on the Reopening Ontario Act of 2020, so a completely different reopening. And most recently, I had a conversation with Dr. Elizabeth Richardson, our local chief medical officer, and with McMaster Sick Kids, Hamilton Health Sciences, our Bruce Squires, the chair of McMaster Sick Kids. Both of them or a representative will be here on September 28th, either virtually or face-to-face. As we provide the other update, indicated there will be some questions from the trustees, although we work in partnership with them. It'd be great to have their presence as the experts in public health to answer questions trustees might have. So they will be present on the 28th. And before I pass it over to Associate Directors, a few things I'd like to do is one, acknowledge that there has been challenges. Typically what we have undertaken, sometimes I look in a 6-month window, has occurred in about a 6-week window. So we know there's been challenges, and we'll talk a bit more about that around registration in August is not a typical activity, but the parent portal, our vision for it is what we intended. We need to come back and look at that, but that was a massive undertaking. Also around that data, help around staff organization. As trustees know, we typically do our staffing process and school organization for the entire spring season, and we had to undertake that in about a 2-week window. And we're still doing some of that right now as our numbers have shifted. In addition, a remote school, setting up a remote school where numbers will be shared, but the numbers have increased as we've closed off the registration as of Friday, as parents were given choice under the guidance document from the ministry. That is a massive setup and training of staff as well. Even the item 4, the challenge of obtaining PPE and getting the PPE out to all schools and all sites has been a massive undertaking, and we've been able to accomplish that. But that was 1 month's supply, what some trustees saw downstairs, so another month's supply will be coming shortly. Also around the massive amount of communication. We've heard challenges from parents, even staff and students around the volume of communication, the type of communication, and then communication shifts. As new information comes, we're trying to be agile and respond. So that has been challenging. I'm reassured as I spoke to someone in the healthcare sector and who reminded me that it took 2 to 3 months for the healthcare sector to find a sense of new normalcy with the new protocols and procedures. But as you continue to go through the opening, you'll be able to answer those questions and respond. And lastly, one of the challenges that we're experiencing right now around the consistency of managing outbreak protocol. August 25th, the province provided us with the operational guidance document around COVID management in schools. So most recently, as of Friday, we learned something around a childcare in Waterdown that occurred in August. The ministry website went live on Friday, I believe. So that information, we found out about it after. We've had local conversations around having that communication come directly through our partners, through public health, through us. So we're working on that process. I highlight those to be realistic around the challenges we have experienced, but I also want to highlight, before I pass over to Associate Director Peter and the team, is the incredible work that people have been doing in the midst of challenges. I want to thank trustees for the volume of emails you received, directing the staff to problem solve these operational new challenges. I also think this week we need to celebrate what staff in the front lines have been doing to prepare our communities to receive students. So instead of me saying it, our communications department, with the support of our senior team, who gave them examples of what's been happening last week and as of today. So I'll ask the officer to hit the video.
Left.
Of course. Let me close with that last challenge. So as Trustee Officer Miller is looking at it, let's see if we can get through it one more time. So before I pass over to Associate Director Peter Sobran, a thank you to all our staff in front lines. The amount of work to set up our physical environments, our caretakers, all our educators, our office staff, our principals and vice principals, all the managers of service departments. It was a massive undertaking, but people pulled together, and as a result, we're starting to welcome our students, and it's great to see our students back in schools. So on that note, I'll pass over to Associate Director, and there's about 6 buckets we're going to sort of address today verbally, and to you, Peter, thank you.
Thank you, and through the chair, closer to the mic here. So as the director has indicated, and as you've seen with some of the video footage, we have been through the collective efforts right across the entire organization, implementing the plans that we've brought before the trustees over the course of the summer. And as the director has indicated, in most cases, that has been dramatically reduced in terms of the amount of time that would usually take to make these changes. And in so many instances, like the ones you're about to hear, we've been undertaking this work for the very first time. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent Sharon Stefanian, who prior to the global pandemic was our liaison with public health. She continues to be our liaison with public health and is now our expert in terms of face shields, PPE, mask exemptions, and so on. Sharon?
So thank you, Associate Director, and it's wonderful to see folks this afternoon. So happy to provide a bit of an update. I hope I'm talking loud enough. I'm just going to look at the chair. I'm getting nods. Okay, thank you. So happy to provide an update on some of the enhanced public health measures, beginning off with PPE, specifically PPE for our staff. Overall, the distribution of PPE has gone well in the system. As our director mentioned previously, we receive orders on a monthly basis for the upcoming month. So we have received and deployed the PPE we've received for the month of September. We did have some concerns that were raised from our occasional staff, certainly recognizing it was the first delivery over a series of weeks for the first PPE delivery. We wanted to ensure that all of our permanent staff had both their masks and the face shields. And our interim approach for occasional staff was looking at shared face shields that would be disinfected before and after use and available for staff when they arrived in schools. Heard concerns with respect to that approach. So I'm pleased to say that we have been moving towards a model of providing all of our occasional staff with personal face shields as well. We received our first additional delivery on Thursday of last week, and there were 300 anti-fogging face shields that we began deployment to occasional staff on Friday. And I'm pleased to say that as of this afternoon, we've received another shipment of I don't have the number, but what we received today, actually over the weekend, is enough to ensure that all of our occasional staff will receive a personalized face shield. So we're beginning, or continuing, if you will, the deployment process this week, and hopeful within a week, all of our occasional staff will have their personalized face shield. With respect to face shields, we have also submitted our order for all of our October PPE. We have heard from some staff that some of the face shields we received were causing concerns with fogging and steaming up. So the request that has gone in for September is for October, my apologies, is our October request is for 7,000 face shields that would be anti-fogging face shields. So as trustees know, that the PPE is ordered through and received from MGCS. So we don't know if we'll receive that order, but that has been the request. In addition, in order to support where there have been challenges with fogging, we have, as a board, sourced out goggles that meet all of these safety standards and have vents on the sides so that they are preventing the fogging from happening. We are expected to receive the first shipment of 1,000 by Friday of this week, and the second shipment of 1,000 by the end of the month. And those are not provided through MGCS, but rather through the board, and the board is absorbing the cost to provide those particular shields. I think that's the main update that I wanted to give with respect to PPE, because I know those are some of the questions that we've been hearing from staff. I'll talk a little bit about student PPE for just a moment. I know there's been interest around masks and mask exceptions. As trustees are aware, we spoke at our last meeting around the criteria that we have used with respect to exceptions for wearing a mask. And as a reminder, those include medical, developmental, sensory, or mental health reasons, or if a child is unable to put a mask on and off without assistance. And again, those were identified as the reasons through talking with medical experts, looking at Ontario Public Health criteria, as well as Sick Kids Hospital. As of present, we have received requests for approximately 3,800 mask exceptions across elementary and secondary, which represents approximately 7.5% of our student population. Certainly important for our staff and our schools to continue to validate that there are reasons why students and staff sometimes are unable to wear masks. And you may have noticed if you've well, you would have noticed as we looked at the slides with the signage that we do have signs that show images both with and without masks, and that's with intention to communicate and to share that while we're hopeful that individuals can wear a mask, we recognize and honor that some are unable to wear a non-medical mask, and validating that position. We also continue to look at ways in which to reach out to families who have not yet completed their attestation for return to school. Trustees are aware that our approach around daily screening begins with a one-time attestation completed through the parent portal or completed in a paper format available from a school, in which we're asking parents to review and to attest to the fact that they will be conducting a daily screening with their child, specifically for COVID symptoms or exposure to COVID. When we look at the hierarchy of controls, when it comes to controlling the potential spread of COVID-19, the most important control is if you're unwell, don't come to school, don't come to work. So extremely important that our families are completing the attestation and then following that with their daily screen. And I'm pleased to report today being the day that we saw approximately 50% of our students coming into our buildings. We do know that we had families who completed the screen, where if their child failed the screen, they reached out to the school to share that information specifically. So as I sit here right now, we have roughly 3,800 outstanding attestations. That number is down about 200 from where we were on Friday. And again, you may have seen on social media that our schools had tables set up outside today. So as families were arriving, if they hadn't completed the attestation through the parent portal, there was an opportunity to complete it at school face-to-face today. And certainly calls home from school staff to families indicating the need for the attestation. So we will continue with that process. Also, share a little bit about outbreak protocol. As our director had shared, we know that's a topic that is of great interest to our parents and extremely important. So we have released to our staff, or released to our principals over the weekend, a number of protocols that are connected to outbreak. That includes the protocol around what administrators are to do if a staff member fails the screen before they come to work, what they're to do if a staff member becomes symptomatic while at work, and likewise for students, what do they do if a student fails the screen before they come to school, or if a student becomes symptomatic during the day. And so those protocols essentially walk administrators through what the process is in each of those scenarios. If in fact we do have a student or a staff member who is diagnosed as a positive case of COVID, that's where there is extensive work that will be undertaken in collaboration with public health. All of this work is extensive collaboration with public health, but certainly if we have a positive case, even more so. So there is a detailed flow chart that speaks to the process around outbreak that public health has developed for us. And we were ready for release on Friday afternoon, and then there was information that came forward provincially that indicated that there may be a slight change in approach, specifically with respect to household contacts and what happens when there is a household contact, sibling, parent in a home where someone is diagnosed as having or testing positive for COVID. And so public health asked to hold on that document until there's confirmation, and we're expecting that information to come forward for tomorrow. But the remaining information has been shared out to the system. The only other piece on that I will add as a way of an update is around the public health nurses. Trustees are aware that our community has been funded for 23 additional public health nurses, specifically in support of COVID and deployment to schools. These are 23 new public health nurses. They're not replacing individuals who are already in schools. Public health has fully staffed the program. The nurses are individuals, many of whom have school experience already, and all whom have experience with COVID-19. So they were all deployed during the recent outbreak in Hamilton and have that direct experience. They have deployed based on our family of schools model. So there will be roughly 2 to 3 public health nurses assigned to each of our families of schools. And their role is to be the face of public health with respect to COVID. So they will be in schools, they will be visible. Our schools have on-site teams, contingency teams for COVID. They will be part of the contingency teams. And they will support the school in everything from the prevention control measures that we have in place to, if we have a positive case, they will support contact tracing, they will support case management, support the outbreak process. So they're not there to do screening, they're not there to do testing, but they're there to provide guidance and support when it comes to the prevention aspect, and also to support if in fact there is a positive case in one of our schools. Public Health has also created a dedicated line for our staff as well as any families who may have questions specifically about COVID as it connects to being in schools. And so we will ensure through our next communication to families that we will be sharing that number out with our community. If families have any specific question and they'd like to speak to a public health nurse around COVID in schools, there's someone at the end of that phone line. And I believe that covers my update. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Superintendent. Director, do you have further comments?
Yes, just, that's not the full update, so Associate Director has a few other people to speak. Just in case you're going to go to roll call, could we finish the updates from individuals? Who is the chair?
So we'll go through each one, and so just to be clear, you want me to go through roll call right now on this portion?
No, I was saying I was going to pass it back to Associate Director to finish the updates and then do roll call and questions at the end.
At the end, okay.
Yes,
thank you for that clarity. Associate Director?
Thank you, and through the chair. So we'll continue our updates, and perhaps just for trustees, as the director has indicated, just so you know, there are 6 areas that we want to cover in terms of some very brief updates. This continuing along the lines of enhanced public health measures, we just thought it'd be appropriate to bring an update to trustees on our ventilation system. So I'll ask Associate Director Zucker to speak to that.
Thank you, and through the chair, as trustees are aware, we did employ the consultants to be able to look at all of our HVAC systems across the board. And all 103 of those reports have been posted on the school reopening website under Enhanced Public Health Measures and Ventilation. For 95 of the 103, a repair report has also been posted to show if if issues were identified, that they have been repaired. For the remaining 8, where errors currently, it's being either exchanged through operable windows or through the use of a portable HEPA purifier where the windows are not able to be used. We have distributed about 20 of the air purifiers that we have. We currently have 75 on hand of the 150 that we've ordered, and 20 of them have been distributed. And the remainder of them will be distributed as required. But when we were able to make the repairs and have done so, it may have alleviated the use of those purifiers. So we are in the process of distributing them out where necessary. Again, 20 of them have been distributed. There are 8 remaining repair reports to be posted once all of the repairs have been completed. And where repairs haven't been completed, we've put in either the purifiers or there are operable windows which are able to assist with airflow in those specific rooms. So that's my brief update with regards to ventilation.
Great. Thanks, Stacy. And so the next area that we wanted to bring an update in is our elementary schools. And 3 areas here, the staggered entry. I will turn it over to Superintendent Bill Torrance in a moment to bring an update around remote learning. And then an update around the transition date as well, where families have chosen to either attend in person or remote. But by way of staggered entry, last week we successfully welcomed students that required significant supports. As you'll recall in our previous reports that these would be by appointment and invitation, and we had many students attend in person for their orientation. Today marked the first day of students attending based on their groupings to their schools, and as you saw in some of the introductory videos and clips there, classrooms were welcoming, staff were ready to receive students. And just a comment that, staff did use the time, the additional time that was provided through the staggered start to have these classroom environments in the entire schools ready to receive students. We are still on track for the first day in elementary schools for all students to begin on Wednesday. I'm just going to go to the third section around transition, the transition date before I hand it off to Bill. So we're currently finalizing the steps for parents and guardians in terms of indicating if they do want to transition from in-person or remote. And although the date seems a ways away, and we're talking about the first day of school for everyone being this Wednesday, and the transition date being October the 13th, the planning that's involved in this type of transition typically will take 2 to 2.5 weeks. And so within the next few days, trustees will receive a further detailed update via email around the communication that will go to families in terms of preparing for this transition process. So in terms of the remote learning school, I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent Bill Torrance for an update.
Thank you, Associate Director Sovereign. We began the construction of the remote learning program based on 6,300 students. 6,300 students. Based on the parent portal snapshot on August 28th. We are now at just over 8,500 students. That has resulted in the need to hire 92 additional FTE of staff. The increase has been due to several factors, including data cleanup from the original pre-registration through the parent portal, honoring parents that indicated they made an effort to select remote learning before pre-registration or before August 28th, but they were either unable to or there were some unique circumstances. So this has created a significant challenge in setting up classes and ensuring that we have all the staff in place. However, we feel that it was a reasonable trade-off, and as a result, we've needed to alter the staggered start for the first 6,300 students while maintaining the first full day being on this coming Wednesday. We've had to adjust the start for the remaining classes, approximately 82 classes plus their preparation teachers, to begin contact from parent to parents on Wednesday, half day on Thursday, and a full start on Friday. Therefore, by Friday of this week, we're targeted to have all of our students in remote learning in place and connected to their teachers. So we're very pleased to be able to accommodate French immersion and the Mandarin program at this time within the first 6,300 registrations, and are working through a process to continue to support those programs. We have communicated to parents tonight that the majority of their teachers for the first 6,300 have contacted their families, their classes during the day today, and the half-day staggered start begins tomorrow. There will be some cases where, for a variety of different technical reasons, that may be delayed by a day. However, we are on target to have that first full day on Wednesday. And that is the end of my update.
Thanks, Bill. As the director had indicated in his opening remarks, there certainly are many things to celebrate, and certainly some challenges that we've encountered along the way, and want to bring those forward. One of those challenges, as we shift to secondary school reopening, was last week, where we had indicated an online welcome and orientation would begin on the Thursday. Due to some challenges in terms of setting up the virtual classrooms, that was delayed by a day. But a workaround was found through the collaborative efforts of all staff involved. Again, can't emphasize enough that each one of these processes doesn't just involve a small group of individuals, but it crosses pretty well each department and division in the organization to come together very quickly to problem solve and to put in place a solution that will work. And so with that, by the end of the day Friday, secondary school students were able to have an orientation and a welcome through a remote learning platform. And today, grade 9 and 10 classes from cohort A began attending in person based on the schedule, with our grade 11 and 12 classes beginning remotely. This will continue tomorrow for cohort B. And on Wednesday, we will be welcoming all students based on their cohort, grades 9 through 12, with classes. Another area that has been very challenging across the system has been the establishment of study halls in secondary schools. But again, through collaborative efforts, school principals, their SOSAs, and staff across the organization, a plan is in place for study halls in each school. We will, like so many of these new processes, monitor very closely as students begin to attend in person and utilize the study halls. And as needed, we will make adjustments. But at this time, we're pleased to say that study halls are up and running and ready to receive students in each of our secondary schools. And in terms of those students who have chosen e-learning, pleased to say that as of today, again through much hard work, that all students that have requested a full e-learning timetable have been accommodated and will be beginning their courses. We will have a full update in terms of numbers in the September 28th report to the board. And special classes, particularly in secondary schools, we continue to work through some of our programming for many of our students that require significant special education services, trying to find the best balance of in-person attendance, if that's what their families have chosen, and or remote learning. So this is being done on an individual basis. It began late in August. It continues on a daily basis. And again, we work through each individual case to find the best possible solution. I'm now going to turn it back over to Associate Director Zucker for an update around transportation.
Thank you, Peter, and through the chair. For transportation, as we reported last week publicly, the driver shortage, and again, we were about 30 drivers short before March break, compounded with COVID, and about 56 drivers indicated that a COVID-related reason for not returning. We, on Thursday of last week, were about 59 drivers short in the morning and 67 short in the afternoon. So over the weekend, the Hamilton Wentworth Student Transportation Services worked with our consultant and HWDSB staff to consolidate runs and to reduce routes. And these new routes will start on Wednesday, September 16th, so in 2 days. Once we have a better understanding of who's taking the bus and we actually have the ridership, we may be able to consolidate further. We know that the first opt-in out day is October 13th, so we will work with that date to possibly bring about more changes. And we are working with our bus operators to try and get more drivers back via education on the safety components that impact the safety of the drivers and students, just to make sure that they're aware of all of the enhanced public health measures that are in place, and also through financial incentives. So we're doing two things to try to impact the driver shortage. One is reducing runs by consolidation, and two is to increase the number of drivers that we have either through returning, or we know that there are drivers currently in training, and we will also be looking at alternative methods of transportation. So that's my update for transportation. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Stacey. And at this time, our fifth area that we'd like to provide an update is around staffing and school reorganization. And so with that, we'll turn it over to Superintendent Nunn.
Good evening, trustees. Human Resource Services is almost fully completed our hiring and onboarding plan for the new school year. I'll provide a more fulsome update at our HR committee meeting next week. However, I'll focus this evening on two areas, both elementary and secondary staffing. I'll first start with elementary staffing. Human Resources, in collaboration with Exec Council, Business Services, IIT, and school administrators, have nearly completed a major elementary school reorganization for most of our elementary schools to accommodate families who have opted for remote learning and to support and accommodate staff. As Superintendent Torrens has indicated, during the week of August 28th, we opened 240 remote day classrooms and hired approximately 92 occasional teachers on long-term occasional contracts, in addition to 43 designated early childhood educators, or DECEs, to staff the remote day school. Given the additional 2,000 students who have opted for remote learning in the past week, we have now opened an additional 82 classrooms, resulting in an additional 89 staff that will be required. So that's 89 elementary occasional teachers and 17 further DECEs who will be hired on long-term occasional contracts. These 99 staffing positions are currently being staffed, many of them this evening, and almost all staff for the remote day school will now be in place and ready for students as of Wednesday and Thursday of this week. Our current challenge is staffing the additional French positions, as our occasional staff are currently on multiple ward lists And for some of our occasional staff, they have accepted full-time permanent work in other boards. A key next step for us will be establishing our reorganization timelines to adhere to the first transition date for families next month. We're currently drafting these timelines, and we'll work with our Weddell executive, our union executive, to finalize these timelines aligned to the collective agreement. And there will be further staffing challenges, staffing changes once we know the actual number of students who are attending both our brick and mortar classrooms and schools and the remote learning school. In regards to secondary, we continue to monitor closely our secondary class sizes across all secondary schools and e-learning. As part of the board budget passed in June of this year, trustees ensured additional funding for secondary contingency lines, and we're using this funding to open additional e-learning classes as required across the system. In response to student need, as of Friday, we opened 9 additional e-learning lines to eliminate wait lists for students. And we anticipate we will need to add additional e-learning lines this week as students finalize their selections and timetables for first semester.
Great, thanks, Jamie. And so the last area that we'd like to provide an update is in terms of communications. So I'll ask our manager, Sean McKillop, if you go to the podium. While Sean's making his way to the podium, I'll just provide a brief update from the school level where schools were supported through communications to provide welcome back messaging, communicating school level routines and staggered starts. And I think what you saw in that very brief video montage at the beginning was just a small sample of how schools used a variety of different platforms and ways at a school, at a classroom, at a teacher level to connect with students and families, welcoming them back to our schools. Sean?
Thank you, Associate Director. And through the chair, I have a few updates that I'll sort of divide into about 3 areas. The first is the experience overall with the parent portal. As you all know, that this is part of our strategy to have digital engagement with all of our, with a number of different audiences, and the parent portal is something that in the long term, we are certainly looking to that vision of supporting parents through a digital platform. The challenge that we had, of course, this year, as of August 14th, was that there were a few areas of this, one including the data that was held at the school was not as up to date as we would have liked. And I know that that might be a little bit of an understatement, considering that we've had over 15,000 emails come through. The other challenge that we experience is that typically the communications through the central office here is not equipped to provide such a call center. We don't have the resources, and during that time we were unable to respond to all those inquiries. IT and through communications worked really hard together to make sure that we were able to identify and to respond as much as we could. We did rely on IIT, and a survey was created for parents to be able to fill in the form to provide technical support. As of Friday, last Friday, that central support was taken down because the training has now happened for school staff, and all the inquiries for the parent portal will be done at the school level. As I mentioned, the data is held at the school, and that's where the school office administrators, who I just want to give a big shout out to and thank them for their work, that's where the data is held, and that's where the data can be verified. We were unable to verify that data in our area, in our Office of Communications, but IT was able to do that in the meantime. Just as of today, we're still receiving a lot of inquiries, so we had about 300 emails as of today. So we are dealing with the high volume still, but we are trying to manage it as best we can, and now that we are shifting communications to the school level, we are addressing more and more concerns. The top issues today were related to remote learning, school transfers, and the parent portal. I just want to mention in the next part of this brief update that we have started a community campaign, an awareness campaign to share some of the work that we've done on the website. And really, we're focusing on the enhanced public health measures right now. The area really that we're looking at is to show our community how much that we are caring for kids and that we are preparing to help them keep students safe. Some of the areas that we're looking at in particular are just hand washing, student screening, staying to the right, and cleaning high-touch surfaces. As we move from system communications, we're going to continue to work through and communicate with families. I did a quick count. We've done 25 family updates, and I've just counted, and we've been in this for 27 weeks. So I think we're doing okay almost on a weekly basis to try to reach our parents in our broader community. But we can do more, and we will do more. We will continue to support our schools as they're going through startup. We are continuing as a department to focus on the remote school and getting them starting up, as well as our focus as we move into the school year into this next time. We're looking at really focusing on the outbreak protocol and issues management. Thank you.
Thanks, Sean. So with that, those are the updates for this evening, and I'll turn it back to the director if he has any closing remarks.
So again, I'll just provide some closure. We'll provide a fulsome report on September 28th, and we will have remotely, since we can't have visitors in the room, but we will have someone from Public Health and McMaster Children's Sick Kids, Hamilton Health Science, be here as well to answer some of the questions, especially around the enhanced public health measures. So through that, I'll pass it over to the chair, and staff's happy to answer any questions this evening.
Oh, thank you very much to all of our staff, those in the boardroom here this evening, but also those across the system. Certainly today and last week, as many of the school visits began, we saw many posts on social media. Today, I know I was out on a walk in my neighborhood and I saw the kids getting ready to go into the building for school. A lot of excitement from all of the time that has passed, and there has been many glitches along the way, but there's also been I can also see all of the hard work that's gone in as well. And certainly our students were thrilled to be connecting back either online or in physically with their teachers and their peers today. So I want to extend from this Board of Trustees to all of our staff across the system a most heartfelt thank you. With that, I will turn to questions, and I will start with, I'll reverse it. So do I have anyone in the room who has questions? I'll ask you to raise your hand. Trustee Mulholland? And I'll just ask you to make sure that you speak right into the mic. Thank you. I'm not sure.
There it is now.
Thank you.
Hello, okay. Through the chair to Superintendent Stefanian, I have a three-part question. The 23 public health nurses that we've been very fortunate to obtain, number one, will they be 23 full-time timetables? And number two, how will they be deployed? And number three, what is the percentage of them that have mental health experience? Thank you.
I'll move to Superintendent Stefanian.
So through the chair, and thank you to the trustee for the questions. I'll see if I can do them all in order. So the first one was with respect to the FTE. So the 23 public health nurses will be employed by the City of Hamilton within their Division of Public Health. They are going to be full-time and fully deployed to schools within the Hamilton-Wentworth community. That is both the public board and the Catholic board. the deployment of the 23 follows our family of schools model. So public health has looked at our structure within each of the families. They have looked at the high priority schools that we have identified and where resources are targeted and focused in our regular public health deployment. So they have used that information as well as data that they have available with respect to previous trends around COVID-19 within the community to support making those decisions. The trustee also asked a question with respect to mental health expertise. I unfortunately don't know that. I'm happy to take it away and ask public health. I do know that all of those that they have deployed, they have tried to deploy individuals who have previously worked in schools, so they do have an understanding of work within schools. But in addition to that, individuals who also have experience responding specifically to COVID-19.
Trustee Mulholland?
Yes, thank you. I did miss the part about the second part about how they're being deployed. Did I hear another school board, a separate school board? Was part of that?
Sharon Stefanian?
So through the chair, the 23 nurses are not just deployed at our board.
So we'll turn to Superintendent Stefanian to provide a comment so that those on the phone can also hear.
So thank you. Through the chair, yes, that is correct. So public health has been funded for 23 public health nurses for our community across the 2 school boards.
Further questions? Okay. Okay, I have Trustee Maria Felix Miller.
Hi, thank you. And just as a follow-up to Trustee Mulholland's question, will trustees be provided with a list of the schools where the nurses are going to be deployed, and will they rotate?
Superintendent Stefanian.
So through the chair, the intent is that every school within Hamilton Wentworth District School Board is going to be attached to a support team of public health nurses. So as I spoke to the fact that there will be 2 to 3 public health nurses attached to each family of schools, that group of 2 to 3 are going to work together as a team in order to support that grouping of schools. So we won't have any school that doesn't have someone who is assigned to them in terms of being able to provide support in the areas that I had identified. But public health is the model of having a responsive team allows all 2 to 3 of those individuals to have an awareness of the needs of the schools within their family, but also to be able to provide responsive support. If one of the nurses is working with one school, someone else on the team is able to respond. So in terms of rotation, that group of 2 to 3 will support the family, but we wouldn't see a group of 2 to 3 being deployed to a different family. It'll be working within the family that they're assigned to.
And sorry, just a further question. Will these nurses be physically in our schools, or will they be at their own sort of quote unquote offices and then contacted by another means when support is needed?
Superintendent?
So through the chair, thank you to the trustee for the question. No, these individuals are intended to be the frontline face of public health support within our schools. They will be in schools, visible every day. Part of our protocols in both elementary and secondary looks to the creation of a school-based contingency team to look at how the public health measures are being implemented, where there may be a need to make some adjustments in a school. Those nurses will be part of those committees as well. So they are on the ground in buildings providing support every day.
Thank you. I have a few other questions that are kind of all over the map, so I will try to be concise with them. On the point around having school admin personnel outside this week outside entrance at drop-off to make sure that families are given an opportunity to physically hand in a daily attestation form. Can I just get a clarification? Is that something that we're doing kind of to the end of the week to make sure we catch everyone, or will parents have another avenue that they can submit?
Superintendent?
So through the chair, yes, absolutely. So we are looking for as many ways as possible to ensure that parents have that opportunity to provide. If a parent is, there still is the opportunity to complete on the parent portal, so that continues to be an option. One of the strategies we suggested to schools was the idea of a table set up outside as families are coming in this week in order to meet and complete the forms. That may not work for every family. Certainly a form going home with a child and coming back the next day is also a potential alternative. So we do want to meet families where they are and provide support in any way that is necessary. Our attestation form has also been translated into 11 different languages. So again, wanting to ensure that parents are aware of what we're asking them to attest to, and the screening form is translated as well. But yes, the school will continue to accept those forms until we get them all.
Fantastic, thank you. And now moving on to ventilation. Thank you very much for the specific details around the repair lists, which schools have been addressed, which schools are getting the HEPA purifiers. But I'm wondering if there's any plans to check in with specifically with school-based staff to see how the classrooms actually feel. So I know sometimes a repair list can be ticked off if it's met certain requirements, but particularly with the varying temperatures outside right now during September and probably October, if we can just check in with our school level staff to see whether or not the repairs are actually sufficient, and if classrooms feel comfortable, if airflow is comfortable. Could I get some clarification on that as well, please?
Superintendent Stefanian? Or not Stefanian, Zucker? Associate Director Zucker?
Thank you, and through the chair, it's a good question, and we will be working, staff, when they have concerns, will bring them to their principals. Principals will work with the facility operations supervisors, and we will look at the distribution of those additional filters that we have. So it is something that we will be taking into account, and staff can work through their principals, and then it can be looked at by the facility operations supervisors.
Thank you so much. And my last two questions. I just want to ask whether or not, I know that there are some families whose children have higher special needs and have opted for a remote option. Is there any way to check in with those families whether the remote option is working for those parents? I know sometimes parents might feel at the beginning that a certain option was better, but once they get through the actual implementation of remote, particularly if they're dealing with children who have very high special needs, is there any way for those cases to have a bit of a check-in?
So I'll go through to the director.
So thank you to Trustee Maria Felix Miller's question. I think that's what you've, Associate Director Peter Sovereign is identifying on a case-by-case. It will be very important for our students with special needs, because some students full remote will not meet their needs, and nor will coming in every day meet their needs. So maybe I'll ask Superintendent Peggy Blair if she could provide just an update of how we're dealing with it on a case-by-case, and what we're trying to do as a blended approach to support some of the families. So through Superintendent Peggy Blair, thank you.
Thank you, and through the chair, it's a really good question. And as Associate Director Sovereign mentioned, it is on a case-by-case basis, and we know in remote learning that not all students can attend for the full number of instructional minutes. It may have to be broken into very short periods of time, or depending on the learner, they may be able to participate for the full amount of time. So in the next day or two, the educators who will be providing instruction in a remote fashion will reach out to the parents to get their to gather information on what would best suit the needs of that child, and then set a schedule to for the student to opt in. So it may be that a student, for example, opts in several times for 15 minutes at a time, or 20 minutes, or whatever the prescribed amount of time would be. And if for some reason it was not working well, then again, the educator team in the classroom would connect with the principal to adjust the time or seek additional supports that may help that child, but also offer that in a synchronous manner. So, for example, members of our autism and neurodevelopmental team may also be providing supports, but it would be done in a synchronous manner.
Thank you so much. And so that conversation would be happening within the context of the remote school classroom. So the educator would see that need and then have follow-up a conversation with parents or administration?
Yes, the teacher that is offering remote instruction would be connecting with the parents just as they would in a bricks and mortar building. And again, it could be a blended model. So again, we're still connecting with our administrators and our teachers that will provide instruction in a blended way.
Thank you. It's really nice to know that that's on the radar for the team. And just one final question that sort of ties into that. I know in particular in my area, my schools, my elementary schools are a higher priority school, and principals are often the sort of, the bridge connector to families who have higher needs, special needs, but also socioeconomic needs, mental health supports. And one of my administrators shared with me that there is a bit of a concern because normally she checks in with her families, and unfortunately some of those families, because they have chosen remote, she's no longer technically that family's principal anymore. So I'm wondering if there's maybe a chance there to have a conversation between the remote school and their home school administration.
Thank you, and through the chair, great wondering. And we're currently looking at possibly a co-enrollment so that they don't lose connection with their home school. So it's something that we're following up on, but we do know that it's important for children or families to maintain that connection to that school. So thank you.
I would love to hear more about that development whenever staff could let us know. Thank you. I'm all done for questions.
Becky? Yep.
Yeah, so my question is primarily concerned with FI. At this point, it doesn't sound that we've got enough French immersion teachers who can be handling the number of students that have opted to go remote. And I just wondered, what are the impacts? What are we doing in the meantime while we wait on staffing to occur? Obviously, I'm very hopeful that we will be able to fill the positions needed, but what does that look like in the next few days or potentially weeks while we wait on that to occur?
Director?
So I'll begin, then I'll ask Superintendent Nunn to provide a further update. So as was indicated, that when we looked at the 6,300 originally who chose remote, we were able to provide instruction in English and core French and French immersion for students who've chosen remote. With, in addition, just to remind trustees of staffing, when we added the $9 million reserve, we were also able to lower in person the FDK average to about 21 and a grade 4 to 8 average 21. And as we go through the next round of reorganization, our goal is to make sure that we try to maintain those averages. But what's happened since the reorganization and the transition of 2,000 more students to the remote, of course, we have not changed and reallocated any of the staff who've been assigned to school. But what we're doing is adding occasional teachers, LTOs, to those additional 90 plus positions. So we know come October 13th, we'll have our next reorganization, which means that we'll be looking at potentially, if the parents still choose our number stay at 8,300, there'll be some redeployment of staff who currently are in schools, brick and mortar, to the remote school to find that balance again. So we know by October 13th we'll have that solution, but in the short term between now and then, I'll ask Superintendent Nunn to speak to what Human Resource Services is doing in the short term.
Thank you, and through the chair. So our staffing process works through 3 different rounds. And so with the first round of postings in support of students for the 6,300 students in the classes we built in the remote day school, we were able to fill all but 1.5, a combination of 1.5 FTE of remote day for core French and French immersion. So these jobs have now moved into what's called a 3rd round, and they're open to all of our new occasional staff. With the additional 2,000 students and the additional need for core French, these positions are now being posted this week. And we have reached an agreement with our elementary occasional teachers union, whereby we're only posting positions for 1 day. Generally, we post positions for up to 5 days. So we've shortened the posting process to 1 day. Candidates are applying for positions. Round 1 is not filled. It moves to round 2, which is now open to a wider group of qualified individuals. And then it would move to round 3, which would be our newly hired staff. We've, in the last few weeks, we have hired and onboarded 66 new core French and French immersion speaking teachers. We are mindful, however, that these staff members are currently also on other school board lists. And many of these individuals, and respectfully, are looking for full-time LTO contracts. And some of the contracts that we're only able to provide at this time are less than 1.0. So they're, for example, a half-time core French position or 2/3 of a position. So this is a very key week for us, and thankful for the agreement with our elementary occasional teachers union by only posting positions for 1 day. We are extremely hopeful that more of our recently hired occasional staff who are French speaking will pick up the assignments that we have vacant between now and Thursday. I'll be able to provide the board with a more fulsome report in regards to our French hiring. In the interim, after we have exhausted all avenues for a core French or French immersion speaking teacher, to support that class assignment, the class would continue, and that class would continue with an English speaking teacher and potentially a teacher who may have a part of a French immersion French speaking qualification. So be able to support that student. This is a major priority area and continues to be for our school board and others. But for us in Hamilton Wentworth, we're grateful that we were able to successfully hire and onboard 66. That's our largest cohort we've ever hired from the faculties following the end of August.
Further questions?
No, I feel for those families who opted for remote and they don't have the teachers quite yet. There's so much uncertainty. So understanding that you guys are working as hard as possible and having creative conversations with our union partners to try and fill these positions as quickly as possible with quality candidates. So my only other thing on my list that hasn't already been covered is just a thank you, in particular right now to Sean McKillop and his team that have worked tirelessly hours. Those were a crazy few weeks, and my email inbox was the biggest I've ever seen it grow, and so I can just imagine and understanding that everyone in this room and listening in has been working exceptionally hard. So thank you for sacrificing your summer to help overcome these incredible hurdles. So thank you very much.
Trustee Danko.
Thank you. I have a number of different questions, and I'll just build on what's already been said. I do want to echo the thanks that's been mentioned to all of the staff that work here at the Ed Center and all of the school-based staff, our administrators or educators. Thank you to our communications team who woke me up at 7 this morning with a phone call reminding me to screen my children before I sent them to school. Made sure I didn't sleep in. You know, I have to say that I got to see at the high school level our grades 9s and 10s going into a school and how well that was organized. I got to see our elementary students going into a schoolyard from behind the fence. I didn't enter and had some happy kids at the end of the day. So I think it's been a challenge getting here, but today was well done with the power outage across most of Hamilton thrown in there. So thank you to everyone that's getting us through and getting us started. My first question is about face shields, and I think Sharon or Superintendent Stefanian for talking about how we were supporting our occasional staff. There's been the question, not all boards have made that mandatory. And I know we were looking at getting goggles, which is fantastic. But just curious, are we going to be monitoring this and seeing how well are teachers able to function with a shield and a mask when trying to speak to a room? I'm leaning in here and I'm not a loudspeaker, and I know that might be a challenge for some. So I'm just wondering if we're going to be monitoring that, and from a public health perspective, appreciate the eye protection, but if the class is wearing masks, is that necessary?
Director?
I'll begin first and pass this over to Superintendent Stefanian. Thank you for the question, because last week through code, through the Council of Ontario Directors of Education, there were many questions being asked and different Ministry of Labor visits to school boards that were giving conflicting messages. So what I'm looking at my screen is we went back to the ministry guidance document from July 30th, and it clearly says that medical masks and eye protection, i.e. face shields, will be provided for all teachers and all of their staff, school boards. School-based staff, it says here, all school-based staff will be required to wear masks with reasonable exceptions for medical conditions. It does not say they're required to wear face shields. Well, that was the original sort of communication that was coming out. We sought clarification locally, but also through the ministry and the Ministry of Labor through code. And clearly it said that we must provide face shields for our staff. And if they can't maintain physical distancing of approximately 2 meters, then they should be wearing them, whether that's inside or outside. And of course, and other times when they have to be in close proximity and contact with students, they must wear them, and potentially gowns as well, depending what the need is. But the requirement clarity was provided last week that it's not required to be worn at all times, but we must provide them to all staff. I think if it captured it, but I'll ask Superintendent Stefanian to add a little further more. The reason I wanted to respond to that, because it was a question that came up with code and confusion that was coming, mixed messages across boards. So Superintendent Stefanian.
So thank you, and the director has provided a comprehensive response. The only thing that I will add is that we updated the PPE protocol on Friday, and in the director's staff message that is going out, I believe later today or tomorrow, we provide that clarification for all staff. I think that will be welcome news, but did appreciate seeing our staff out there today wearing all of their PPE. My next question is around elementary and recess. So, you know, I've seen the squares at a number of different schoolyards where kids are restricted so that they stay in their cohorts. Are we considering at the school level at splitting out recesses further so that kids have more space to move around in? Because it is a challenge for them to actually move much. And they only had half of the students out for recess today. So just curious, because that physical activity, that getting out and moving is going to be important.
Director, I'll go through to the director.
Yeah, I'll ask Associate Director Peter Sullivan to provide that level of detail.
Thank you. And through the chair, I'll just begin by saying that as part of our routines for elementary schools, consideration for nutrition breaks, time outside, entries, and all of that has been factored into each different school's own routines. But I'll ask Superintendent McPherson if she, or Superintendent Gillies, who have been leading the work around elementary operations and routines, if they have anything to add. And I guess since she's coming to the podium, she has something to add.
Thank you, and through the chair. Each school has done an analysis of their yard, and they have determined, based on the space, because we know that every school context is different, so they've looked at the space that they have outside. As well, they have looked at the population, how many students are enrolled, and then they also are considering supervision requirements to make these decisions. As well, as much as possible, they are trying to maintain, as much as possible, consistency in their scheduling. So the first week or two, they will be monitoring. Every school has a school contingency action team that will be reviewing how the nutrition breaks have progressed, and they will determine if any changes need to be made.
Thank you. Appreciate that we're monitoring this and being adaptable as we need to. Just for clarity for families, there's been some communication for secondary, so I'm shifting gears, saying that when we shift cycles and they take their second course through the day in person, there may be some changes in which cohort the student is in. And I'm not sure if I'm understanding that right, but I'm getting questions about that. Could we just get some clarity about that?
I'll ask Associate Director, through the chair, if he could respond to
that. Thank you, and through the chair. So you were correct, Trustee Danko, that it may be necessary in some circumstances to adjust cohorts. So if a student, for instance, in the first rotation is in cohort A, which amounts to a class having approximately 15 students spaced out about 2 meters apart, we then move into the second rotation, which would be a different class. It's their second period class. It could be, based on the way the cohorts have been divided, that there are more than 15 students in that particular cohort, in which case an adjustment may be necessary, depending on the size of the classroom and the physical spacing. So we wanted to indicate that so that there are no surprises. Again, being very transparent, we will try and minimize all the changes and disruptions, but to be fair, given the transportation needs as well, there may be some adjustment to the cohort.
Thank you. And through the chair, so I think I need to clarify a touch further. So they might have a change to their class cohort. The 15 students or 17 students that they're with for their first period class may be different in their second period class. But would they be switched to cohort B from cohort A and have to go on different days of the week?
Through the chair, that's correct.
Okay, so that may happen. So for families, they should be prepared to adjust their schedules if needed. Related to secondary as well, a number of questions, and I just would like to get it stated out there publicly. What should families expect in terms of getting HSR bus passes? So I know some of that information didn't get to families last week. Would that happen this week, and what does that look like?
So Associate Director Zucker could provide an update. HSR passes. Thank you.
Thank you, and through the chair. So the HSR letters were distributed to the schools later in August, and schools were given direction to either mail them out to the individual families, or to have a process to have them distributed when they attend school on their first day. So it may be different depending on the school, but there should be a process that they can talk to their school about to figure out whether they should have been expecting it in the mail or whether they would be picking it up at their school.
Nope. Thank you. My next question is about devices and supplies for families. So for a number of remote families, in the spring, one device might have sufficed at home and an old device might have worked, but with remote learning being the considerable amount of synchronous time with the teacher for each child, I'm hearing from some families they would need a device and that wasn't previously identified. Other families are suggesting that for remote learning, they need to pick up art supplies for their kids, and that might be a struggle. How might families access supports, and how do they signal that they need a device from our board for remote learning in particular?
So thank you for the question. I'll ask Associate Director Peter Sovereign, but our commitment is if a student or family needs more than one device because they have 2 or 3 children, that we're going to be able to provide them, and we know that we actually do have the inventory, within our schools, but there needs to be a process to get it to families. But I'll ask Associate Director Peter Sovereign to provide an update. Or
thank you, and through the chair, you've captured it, Director, in terms of the general response, but even more specific to that, I'll ask Superintendent Torrens to provide a brief update around the survey for families that have chosen remote learning.
Thank you, Associate Director Sovereign. And through the chair, we embarked on a parent technology and Wi-Fi connectivity survey on Friday via the parent portal. We appreciate that there are some parents we are understanding may not have been able to access the portal. We have delegated or directed a vice principal to lead this work directly for us, and that person is now the key contact. We have an initial database of families, and we're cross-referencing that with technology that was shared from schools in the spring, and we expect to be able to start providing technology to families as early as Wednesday of this week.
That's wonderful news. Okay, just one last quick question. Noting that we have our typical reorganization for the end of September so that we meet our ministry guidelines, which we are obviously going to knock out of the park this year since we've got a lower class average. But we also have the opt-in, opt-out, or switch from remote to in-person learning in October. Are we able to align the request for that change so that we can do the reorg all in one go? And if there's a reason we have a number of kids coming back into our schools in person, if staff identified that there's a bit of a challenge keeping those class sizes low, will that come back to trustees so that we can identify possible solutions?
So through the chair, and I'll ask Superintendent Nunn to provide any clarity if I've captured it. So what we did in August was not our typical fall reorg. So the October 13th deadline for staffing reorg is connected to the parent choice of making. So we've aligned that, and we've also aligned our transportation. Parents might also make that change for transportation. So all those 3 are aligned. So that will be another big undertaking. The positive is we can continue to keep our in-person class sizes as low as possible, make sure those reserve funds are kept for that. A ripple effect of that is that with shifts, sometimes students in person might have to shift, or for example, if there's a current situation right now, a grade 1 that's at 10 and grade 2 that's at 10 kids, that might be likely will be joined to 20 kids come October 13th, and a teacher being maybe directed remote, assuming the choices that parents made now are the same choices come October. So all of those will align, and the October 13th, as I think Superintendent Nunn said, aligns to our local collective agreements for elementary staffing. So hope that answers the question through the chair.
Do you have further questions? Thank you. We have Trustee Galindo, and then I'll move over to the student trustees. Trustee Galindo?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Most of my questions have already been asked by previous trustees, so thank you. On that note, though, going back to the public health nurses
at our schools, just a few points of clarification. We already, and correct me if I'm wrong, through the chair, we already have or had a model of public health nurses in our schools. When I graduated in 2013 and when I did work with Hamilton Public Health Services before 2014, it was, every school did have a designated public health nurse, but at a limited, very limited capacity, maybe 3 hours a week was the estimate that I recall. I guess I'm looking for clarification on how that model has now shifted to our current model. My assumption is that with having more public health nurses, we will now have more availability of public health nurses in our schools. But I'm curious, I just want to see if there's a comparative difference there.
Director?
So I'll pass over to Superintendent Stefanian, but Trustee Galindo is correct. So to be clear, the 23 additional for the Hamilton region are in addition to the current public health nurse allotment we have. Now their function will be very different. So I'll ask Superintendent Stefanian to speak again to the difference in terms of their function or their roles. Thank you.
So thank you to the trustee for the question, and through the chair, what the director has shared is very accurate. So I would say it was probably, I'm going to say it's been about 2 years now. Well, it was probably 3 years ago we began to embark on conversations. I say we, it was my colleague Superintendent Torrens and the director and Associate Director Sovereign who worked with public health on a new model for delivery within our schools. And so that's the model that we've had in place for the last 2 years. Intensive focus of public health nurses in high priority schools and specialized programs such as alternative education, and then additional support available if needed. That model and that support will continue. There will be different public health nurses doing that work because many of those individuals have been redeployed over to the group of 23 who are providing the specific COVID response. However, the public health nurses who work in our schools with our health action teams, those who are in the schools and support school improvement planning, the individuals who support priorities that we identify as a system and as schools, those individuals will, or those roles will continue, different people because of how things have shifted, but that function and that FTE will continue. The 23 are additional FTE with the focus entirely on COVID support.
Brilliant, thank you. My second question, with regards to the 3,800 mask exemptions that we've received thus far, just to clarify, those are for students only, just that number, is that correct?
Thank you. So through the chair, yes, those are student numbers.
Thank you. I'll close with just a brief comment. As a trustee, I've had a front row seat to what can only be described as an accomplishment, really as an astonishing feat. I think I'm seeing history in the making, and what would have been considered impossible has been made possible, and what would have normally taken, 15 to 20 years to accomplish, staff have accomplished in a matter of weeks, if not months. So as I reflect upon where we've been, where we are, and where we're going, I have to say that I've gained a tremendous amount of respect and appreciation to our staff, to our teachers, to our administrative support staff, and anyone who's played a role in bringing us to where we are today. So I just wanted to say thank you for that. Back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Student Trustee Zagar, thank you.
Thank you, and through the chair, I had a question about the outbreak protocol. Is any of the information in those protocols going to be released to the community, students, and parents so they can make decisions based on that?
Yes, and I'll turn to the director.
Yes, thank you for that question, Student Trustee Fatima. The outbreak management protocol came to boards August 25th. And then I'll pass over to Superintendent Stefanian how we worked with public health and where people can access them on our website and available in schools. So to Superintendent Stefanian.
So thank you for the question, and through the chair, there are multiple documents that together platform, the outbreak protocol, and I talked about a number of them earlier this evening. So our communications and community engagement team are taking the protocol documents and summarizing them into student-friendly, parent-friendly language to be integrated into the COVID-19 document that has been provided on our board website. So that information will be included there. We're also in the process of finalizing a communication package for students and families. A critical part of that package is the flow chart that I had referred to a little bit earlier. So we are hopeful that where the public health is anticipating there may be some shifts, we're hopeful that we'll have that information finalized tomorrow. And once we have that information, we will see that communication package will be on the website and available for students and families.
Thank you. And just one other question based on transportation, just clarification. The next update on transportation will be on October the 13th, correct?
I'll go to Associate Director Zuger.
Thank you. And through the chair, there will actually be a communication likely tomorrow to update families to make sure that they check and make sure, because as we consolidate the runs for Wednesday, it's possible that the bus time will change from tomorrow until Wednesday. And we will also be updating the list of students directly impacted by the driver shortage and communicating to them specifically. And then the next time that we look, again, once we have more accurate data, we may see another change on October 13th. And that is the opportunity to opt in or out of transportation.
Follow up?
No, that answers perfectly. Thank you, and no further questions.
Thank you. To Student Trustee Hessler.
Yes, thank you, and through the chair. My first question pertains to the elementary schools. So some elementary students who opted for online learning were unable to attain a one-to-one device.
Sorry, just one moment. Trustee Mahaland, sorry, I can hear you speaking, so we're just listening to, we're just listening to the student trustee ask his question, so I'll have you wait. There's no side conversations.
Hello.
Sorry, continue, Student Trustee Hessler.
Yes. So my question was, to what extent are one-to-one devices available for elementary students who opted for online learning?
I'm going to turn to Director Figueredo.
So thank you, Student Trustee Ethan, for the question. I'll ask Bill Torrance to provide a little clarity again just around the survey and when we can expect the deployment to begin. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Director, and through the chair, we intend to begin deployment this Wednesday based on information shared by parents in a survey we've put on the parents portal. Our commitment is to ensure that all students that want remote learning are able to access it from their homes.
Student Trustee, follow up?
Yes. So my next question is about the MS Teams platform. So many students are struggling and are having a couple of technical problems. I believe there was an update that was supposed to go out today to kind of amend these issues. So I would just like to know what the board is kind of doing and where we are in our process for kind of fixing that.
Director.
So thank you, Student Trustee Ethan. Just to give context again, what we heard in the spring when we had to close schools, there were many different platforms, and one of the things in the thought exchange that came to us was that parents said, can you standardize a tool? And I know it might not be everyone's first choice for tool, but Microsoft is part of our suite, and it's already a tool that we have that we don't pay for. It's part of ours. So we've made the decision to use that in connection with the hub as well. But I'll ask Superintendent Torrance to provide an update in terms of any of the challenges or technical pieces he may be aware of from a program side. So Superintendent Torrance.
Thank you, Mr. Director. And again, through the chair, I'm not aware of any technical challenges today, specifically to Teams. We do know that Teams is being used extensively in the afternoon learning occurring in secondary schools. And in some cases, it is a new platform for teachers and students to access and become familiar with. So I'll take your question away and ensure that we can have the proper supports in place for use of Teams going forward through the program division.
Further questions?
Yep. Thank you, and through the chair. My next question is about volunteer hours. To my knowledge, they are still mandated for grade 12s to graduate. Is there any steps that the board is taking to kind of help these students who do not yet have their hours, as obtaining these hours during this time is a very hard thing to do and is kind of limited to things like tutoring. However, not all students are best suited for that.
Director.
So I'll begin, then pass over to Superintendent Bill Torrance. Thank you for asking that question. We've spoken on behalf of the Council of Ontario Directors of Education to the Ministry around any kind of flexibility as the year unfolds around graduation requirements, because what we would not want to see is a student who's obtained all of their graduation requirements and because of some challenges with COVID-19 was not able to obtain their 40 hours of community service. So that's something we're going to be tracking closely and providing updates to the ministry regarding this. And as we saw last spring, the ministry did waive some of those requirements from last year's cohort. But in terms of what we're doing now, I'll ask Superintendent Bill Torrance to provide an update in terms of our position at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Director. And through the chair, we've begun our support of students by first sending a system message through our program Frequently Asked Questions, which is our communication document of program items, to make sure that all schools were aware that it continues to be, community hours continue to be a graduation requirement, and that the ministry has indicated that those community hours can be earned either in person or virtually. We know that once school has been up and running for a few weeks, that we will need to provide additional support as a program division in ensuring that students are aware of opportunities in our community for earning community hours both in person and virtually.
Thank you. No further questions or comments.
Thank you very much. We'll now turn to those on the phone, starting in reverse order. Trustee Tutt, questions, comments? Trustee Tutt, are you available? And Trustee Tutt, one more time. Hearing none. Trustee Paikin-Miller.
Yeah, I just have one question with respect to the teachers. I'm a little worried about burnout and about what they're going through in terms of an extra amount of stress, both within their emotional reality, what's going on, because I know teachers care a lot about their students too. They want to make sure that everything they're doing is the right thing for the student and that the students are benefiting. And so I'm a little bit concerned about what supports we have in place for the teachers right now.
So I'll turn to Director Figueredo.
So thank you to the chair, and thank you, Trustee Carol Miller, for your question. That's why staff about 4 weeks ago, we were concerned about the well-being to effectively implement our plan of all our staff, our teachers, our support staff, and especially our, in addition, our school leaders. So one of the first things supported by the board was the delayed and staggered start. When our superintendents have been visiting schools, talking to principals, and I visited 2 schools last week, the first thing they have said is, thank you that you've staggered and delayed the start, because that's given us a bit more time to get our physical classrooms ready, to understand what the new protocols look like at our school. And so we really appreciate that extra time. And also today we heard that the half of the group coming in has also been very helpful to practice those routines in small groups. But in addition, we've, through Human Resource Services, when staff might be still struggling, that we've offered support through Human Resource. Of course, they can always work with their their principal, but we also know that some staff might require additional support as they're dealing with whatever matter they might be dealing with professionally or personally. So through our human resource employee wellness and support, they're also able to access that support through our human resource services, and we've communicated that quite frequently this year for all staff. That's through the chair.
Thank you. Carol, further questions?
I have one just wanting to know about monitoring this on a go-forward basis. So we know that the teachers are obviously struggling. There's a tremendous amount for them to have to deal with right now. We're all dealing with it, everybody. But I'm thinking of, are we monitoring it, and how are we monitoring it? That's what my concern would be.
Director?
So thank you. And through the chair, I'd also like to say how many teachers I met last week. There, as you know, for some who might be struggling to the transition because it's not what they're used to. They have, it's not their schema. It's not what is normal for them. But they've met just as many teachers who were so glad and staff to be back and to support and be into some type of normal routine again. So the monitoring at the school level is first and foremost through their school principal. They know that the school administration is there to support, and our school administration also knows to reach out to human resource services in addition. And as well, I know that many staff will reach out to their unions, and through relations meetings we have, we'll also direct them to supports that we have. But that's the structure and process we use.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you. And just so trustees are aware, I did receive a text message from Trustee Tutt. He's still on the line, but he doesn't have any questions. Just to, so folks are aware that he's still with us. And moving along, Trustee Deeth.
Thank you. So again, thanks to staff and administration and everybody. This has been a huge task to undertake. And I do want to thank, in regards to the outbreak at Guy Brown, and thank our superintendent, Sue Dunlop, for the quick response, not just the quick response, I think for the really laying out what had happened and explaining it. So I didn't receive a single call about it, which is unusual, but I think it's because of that. It's because of that immediate response to it and the clear communication around it. So thank you in regards to that, because that could have been a disaster. I want to ask, I do have questions about public health nurses, but I will wait until that we have them, that we can ask questions, because my questions, similar to others, are around mental health. The other calls I'm getting right now is parents who chose to go for in-class learning for their students or for their children, and are now, as they see potentially numbers rise for COVID, and are starting to get concerned. And I'm being asked how flexible we are or can be in going from classroom to at-home remote learning. Because I know that we are guided. I think with a remote school, it's a little bit different, because I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, that we're still guided by the same caps and averages. But I'm just wondering, I know if there is students, and I know you have said it's a case by case, but I just, I think just for clarity and to publicly say is, if those concerns arise from a parent that are seeing numbers go up and they're starting to worry about safety, or something happens, a change happens in the health, how flexible are we, or how flexible can we be in going from in-class to remote?
Thanks for the question. I'll move that over, Director Figueredo, and then he can pass that over to specific staff. Director?
So thank you. Through the chair, to Trustee Deeth's question, we can be flexible at the next reorganization, October 13th, where we'll be asking parents to make choices. And as you saw, between now and then, we've actually closed it off just because we have to operationalize the staffing and the organization. Beyond October 13th, we know we have 2 other intervals we've indicated where parents can state their choice, January and March. The flexibility will be less at those times because our local collective agreements indicate that organization changes happen at the end of October. There might be some flexibility there because we still have to maintain class averages and class caps. But I think, so to be clear, more flexibility the first interval, less in the January and March. However, we also know that under the guidance document, the province asked boards to prepare for all 3 scenarios. In other words, we have to be fluid to shift from, as Peter reminded us, scenario A, B, and C, from full conventional to potentially to adaptive to potentially hopefully not, but a school closure to full remote distance learning. So if COVID numbers fluctuate across regions, we know that that's why the province is asked to be ready for all scenarios. So there are 2 factors that can determine this: our check-in with parents, more flexibility in October, less in the other 2 intervals, and also the data coming from the ministry who might direct a shift in scenario or mode. And hence why that's why public health and the nurses are going to work closely in our requirement to report daily attendance to the province. So I hope that answers the Trustee Deeth's questions.
Trustee?
Yeah, I'm just what I'm trying to clarify is because I think people are under the impression that it's easy before the deadline, so at any time, to switch their child from in class to remote because you're just going to remote. But so I'm just clarifying that we are guided by caps and class sizes, and that so unless it's an extreme reason, we're not outside of those days, those turnaround times or turnaround dates that we are trying to, I don't know whether discourage, because it's going to be difficult if numbers begin to go up and we still, I know we're going to be guided by the ministry, but if we still stay with the model that we're in, but parents are feeling that they can no longer, they're worried, they're concerned, is how do they, outside of those dates, so this is before those dates, how would they be able to pull their child and have them remote learning, or is that something we can't do? Does that make sense?
Sorry, through the chair, those would have to be on a case-by-case for an exception, but it would not be us checking across the district whether there's going to be a shift. So to answer your question, Trustee Deeth, yes, we have to be compliant with our collective agreement class size averages and caps. So hence why the October 13th will be an important transition time. And in between those, it'll be a case-by-case, and it's not a guarantee that we can say, yes, we'll try to accommodate, but we can't guarantee that we will be able to because of compliance the pieces that we need to adhere to.
So, and if a parent decides that they can't wait until the turnaround date and pull their child, would they just not be taught for that time that remains? Like, what would happen with that in elementary? I know in secondary it's a little bit different, but in elementary, how would that be handled?
Director?
So through the chair, I would draw parallels to, in any school year, we always try to accommodate the parent choice in school or program. In this case, this year, there's a remote piece. We want to, hopefully we can manage it, but there are cases where a parent, if we're not able to manage it because of class size or caps and compliance, we've had conversations with parents, which we hope is not the choice, where if not, some parents have, either the student would be, recorded absent from school, and we'd be, providing as much of the work as possible that would be self-directed and independent learning. but we would hope that we can accommodate as much as possible. But that would be the scenario that we'd have to adapt and be flexible. Again, as all this information comes, we're going to have to always sort of revisit and be agile to the best of our ability. So we will adapt the best we can once we cross those situations. But there are parameters and restrictions as we move down throughout the year.
Thank you. And then the last question I have is around flexibility in delivering the curriculum. So what I'm hearing from teachers, and not just in our board, but is that as students come back to school, they're really having to focus on, their health and well-being, helping them adjust, and everything else. So is there going to be flexibility around delivering the curriculum?
Director?
So through the chair, I'll speak from the ministry level and then at a local level. We've spoken at a local level. The key for this month around our approach on building a community of care so that learn, disrupt, rebuild to support students with mental health and transitioning it back. And as the ministry has said around curriculum as well, that the overall expectations are going to be key in each curriculum document. So that's where we'll be focusing. But we know if we do this right and transition students well to support them, then they're going to be better prepared to be in a learning stance and to be in learning stance to absorb the curriculum as well. So our approach this month is really around that building a community of care and dealing with the transition back to school. And so the ministry still has the expectation that curriculum will be covered and expectations met. But we remind our educators that the overall expectations in each curriculum document is what we're accountable to. And let's make sure that the well-being piece is front and center, especially when students are returning, because that will benefit us for the long run.
Trustee?
Okay, thank you, and that's it for my questions. And just again, thank you again to staff, and I should have mentioned to Sean and communication and Sharon and all the work. So, thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Bingham. Trustee Bingham?
Yeah, trying to get the mute off. I'm not sure there's anything left. Penny took most of my questions. I do want to reiterate what everyone is saying in that this has been such an incredible undertaking that has been done in such a short amount of time, that this is what teamwork is all about. We have been able to open these schools slowly. We're working on it. We've found a calmness in a lot of the families once they were able to actually speak with somebody from the school or remote or wherever so that they can have a grasp on things. And the small details of how we're actually opening this up, it really makes everyone realize how many people, how many staff members have actually truly been involved to make sure that everything is running as smoothly as it is up to this point. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts. It's just incredible to actually see everything that has come about in a short amount of time. So thank you. That's it.
Thank you. And Trustee Archer.
I've run out of questions. None at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. So I am last on the speakers list, and I just had a few quick questions, which is actually I'll pop it down to one question. I'm wondering when our next student, parent, and staff survey might be. This is a great opportunity to collect input from our students, staff, and parents, hoping that we might have one into next week or shortly after the beginning of school, just to continue to stay nimble and to ensure that we're collecting input from all of our system and our people. Director Figueredo.
So thank you through the chair. At exec team this morning, Peter Silver and I had the exact conversation around our next thought exchange. I can tell you with no uncertainty, it's not this week or the next, and just in terms of workload and volume, but we said it'll be important as we look into the month of October to have 4 or 5 weeks under our belt and to ask parents sort of the feedback again from students, staff, what's working well and what's not under the guidance of what we're required to do under the ministry guidance document. So we have to make sure that how we're asking the questions and some of the follow-up from the last thought exchange are followed up as well. So I'll ask Associate Director Peter Silver, because I know he's going to be, he's connected with our research manager, Sally Langdon, to speak about the next thought exchange.
Thank you. And through the chair, so as the director has indicated, we are going to build on the previous thought exchange with our research and analytics department, and we'll be able to provide an update on the 28th. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess my only other question is, because I know as expressed, we all know we've had a number of different challenges with IT, with our parent portal. When would trustees expect to have, because I know we've learned a lot along the way, when would we have kind of a review or a debrief of what we've learned, and I guess from some of the challenges that we've had with regards to IT?
So thank you through the chair. And I think you heard Sean McKillop speak today about the parent portal tool and how it crosses over many departments, from a school-based level around data integrity and data entry to an IT perspective of test running it into as a communication tool. In the September 20th report, we're going to provide some of the next steps in learning regarding that. So you'll see a little bit of an update on September 28th written report, and then we'll provide a further update as we unpack some of those key learnings. We also know through the thought exchange, we'll hear some feedback as well. So stay tuned to September 28th report, where you'll see the first indication in a written format.
Thanks so much. And then I guess my only other question is just with regards to, as COVID cases, I guess, start to be identified within our schools. And I know there's an article in the Spectator today about cases being identified here in Hamilton, as well as in next door at our neighboring school boards. Would we be able to track in terms of our high need schools versus our standard schools? I'm wanting to know if we would be able to provide, I guess, data with that lens applied. Director?
So through the chair, then I'll ask Superintendent Stefanian to update. Just so trustees are aware, we're required on a daily basis, have a reporting tool to report to the ministry regarding attendance, right, in our schools, and where it might be an attendance related to COVID-19, where someone may be absent, not because they necessarily have contracted COVID-19, because that would be reported publicly, but if there's a family situation or potentially there's and from another cohort in their life where they might have been exposed. So that's done daily. But I'll ask Superintendent Stefanian to review what's the ministry requirement of our reporting, and also the role of public health in terms of the tracking of cases, and then their response to tracking of cases based on certain communities or clusters of cases that might be occurring in communities.
So thank you. And through the chair, a number of different layers. So I will share that as the director has indicated, we do have a reporting requirement with the Ministry of Education. That reporting happens by principals daily at the school level and happens at the board level on a daily basis as well. That reporting at the system level includes individuals, not by name, by role, staff and or students who are off daily because of COVID-related symptoms. or failing the screen. Certainly an individual could fail the screen because of symptoms, but they could also fail the screen because of potential contact and exposure within the community. So that information is provided daily and actually throughout the day. If we have individuals, staff, or students who go home symptomatic, that information is updated with the ministry throughout the day. In addition to that, as the director has indicated, there is data that is gathered by our local public health. We currently have a structure where we meet with public health on a weekly basis, specifically as a leadership team, to talk about the data that public health is seeing in terms of where there are confirmed cases. It can also include testing timelines. That information is tracked as well. So again, an opportunity for us to collectively as a community look at trends and trends within various communities. And the trustees' question, or the chair's question, is very timely because about 2 hours ago, I looked at the draft of our Power BI for attendance related to COVID. And so we're very close to having a tool that will allow us at the system level to be looking at attendance where the code of absence for the code of being absent for COVID-related reasons is used by families. And that, of course, will track globally as a system, but also on a school-by-school basis. Again, for the purpose of us being able to track and look for potential trends and how we can respond to as early as possible where we may see trends.
Thank you. That concludes my questions. So with that, we'll need a motion to receive the report. No? So because it's an update, sorry, my apologies to folks on the line, because this was a verbal update. We do not need a motion. So with that, we'll move right on to item 10, report from the Committee of the Whole private session earlier this evening. And I'll turn to the Vice Chair. Do we have an update?
Through the Chair, there is nothing to rise and report.
Thank you very much. Moving along, oral reports from liaison committees. Item A, City Liaison Board Committee. We haven't had a meeting since just prior to COVID, so I have nothing to report at this time. However, I will commit to following up because we do need to have a meeting again. So I'll find out if there can be perhaps a virtual meeting or something of that nature, depending on the city. Item B, Hamilton Wentworth Home and School Association, Trustee Galindo. Oh, sorry, Trustee Danko.
We're taking turns. Just an update that was provided by our Hamilton Wentworth Home and School Council chairs. They participated in the Ontario Federation of Home and School Associations in discussions with the Ministry of Education about the return to school plans over the summer. They also participated in several HWDSB committees that met over the summer, specifically the Calendar Committee, the Caregivers Mental Health Committee, and the Bullying Review Panel. They've also been keeping very busy helping their home and school associations stay up to date on the many changes during this unprecedented time, and that included a meeting virtually with both Trustee Galindo and myself to clarify school procedures and protocols. And they will be meeting virtually this fall as an association, but the dates have not been finalized just yet.
Thank you. Any questions from, I'll go to trustees on the phone. Do we have any questions from trustees on the phone? Hearing none. Do we have any questions from trustees in the room? Seeing none. Thank you very much, Trustee Danko. Moving along to Hamilton Foundation for Student Success. Trustee Paikin-Miller, can you please bring forward the report?
We don't have any new information on that, no updates because we haven't met, but we're meeting on Wednesday, so next board meeting I will have something.
Wonderful. And so everyone can look forward to participating should they choose.
Okay.
Moving along, OPSPA report, that is me. So we do have a meeting booked for next Saturday. All of the major updates have really come out of OPSPA as of recently, have already been covered by our staff, primarily our finance and finance and facilities with regards to updates on funding announcements or changes. So I think we're actually caught up there. But I'll just turn, do we have any questions from trustees on the phone? Hearing none. Any questions from trustees in the room? Seeing none. Thank you. I'm going to look for adjournment. Of course, it's always moved by trustee Tutt, seconded by trustee Miller. Anyone dissenting? Hearing none, that completes our meeting. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Sunny D.
Left. Carol Paikin Miller.
Left.